Did you know John Wayne made over 170 films in his career? While everyone knows the Duke for classics like True Grit and The Searchers, his filmography contains hidden gems most fans have never discovered. These forgotten treasures reveal sides of Wayne you've never seen before, from comedy to drama to high-flying adventure. Number 15. Island in the Sky, 1953. Hollywood buried this survival masterpiece for nearly 2 decades after Wayne's death. Island in the Sky shows the Duke in rare form as Captain Dooley, a transport pilot forced to crash land in the frozen wilderness of Labrador with his crew. What follows isn't your typical Wayne swagger. Instead, we witness a vulnerable leader slowly cracking under pressure as his men face starvation and freezing temperatures. Director William Wellman shot on location in sub-zero conditions, pushing the actors to their limits. The cinematography is breathtaking, with stark white landscapes creating an almost documentary-like quality. Wayne was so passionate about this project, he put his own money into it as co-producer, believing it would showcase a different side of his acting abilities. The film's realism stands in stark contrast to the Hollywood heroics of Wayne's westerns. There's no romance, no comic relief, just men fighting nature's brutal indifference. Critics praised Wayne's nuanced performance, with Variety noting he brings a quiet dignity to Dooley that reveals depths rarely tapped in his cowboy roles. The real tragedy? Rights issues kept Island in the Sky unavailable on TV or home video until 2005, effectively erasing it from public memory for an entire generation. When finally restored and released, film historians were shocked by its quality. Martin Scorsese called it a forgotten American classic that deserves rediscovery, highlighting its influence on later survival dramas like The Grey and The Revenant. Number 14. The Barbarian and the Geisha, 1958. John Wayne in a kimono. The Duke playing a diplomat instead of shooting bad guys? This bizarre cultural misfire nearly destroyed Wayne's relationship with legendary director John Huston. As Townsend Harris, America's first consul to Japan in 1856, Wayne looks completely lost, both literally and figuratively, trying to navigate Japanese customs while romancing a geisha assigned to spy on him. Production was a nightmare from day one. Wayne and Huston clashed so violently that the Duke actually punched the director during an argument and nearly walked off the set. For a while, Wayne later admitted, "I couldn't make up my mind whether to flat quit and go home and let them sue me or stay and give this thing a whirl." Their feud was so toxic they never worked together again. Critics were merciless. The New York Times called Wayne bewildered and repressed, while others used words like embarrassing and miscast. Audiences stayed away in droves, causing the film to bomb spectacularly at the box office, not even recouping its production costs. What makes this worth watching now is its fascinating failure, seeing Wayne utterly outside his comfort zone, struggling with material that required cultural sensitivity rather than cowboy bravado. The film's attempts at depicting 1850s Japan created unintentionally awkward moments that modern viewers might find both problematic and strangely compelling. Japanese critics were particularly harsh, calling it an American fantasy of Japan, rather than anything resembling historical accuracy. Number 13. Tycoon, 1947. Before he built his reputation as the quintessential cowboy, Wayne tried his hand at playing Johnny Monroe, an ambitious engineer blasting tunnels through the Andes Mountains in this Technicolor adventure. RKO bet big on Tycoon, pouring a staggering $3.2 million into production, their most expensive film ever at that point, and the result is a wild ride of massive explosions, dangerous stunts, and Wayne trading his six-shooter for dynamite. The plot throws everything at Wayne's character: landslides, mutinous workers, cave-ins, and of course a forbidden romance with the boss's daughter. Instead of gunfights, Wayne solves problems with engineering know-how, making this one of his most intellectually oriented roles. The special effects team went all out, creating a massive dam burst for the finale that was groundbreaking for 1947. Despite the massive budget and spectacle, Tycoon flopped hard, losing over $1 million. At 128 minutes, critics complained it was bloated and oddly paced. Wayne himself seemed uncomfortable playing a man of science rather than action. The following year, he starred in Red River and quickly forgot about this engineering experiment. What makes Tycoon fascinating today is seeing Wayne attempt to break his cowboy typecasting years before he became permanently associated with westerns. The location shooting in the mountains provides spectacular visuals rarely seen in that era, and Wayne's romance with Day has a spark missing from many of his later, more formulaic films. It's a rare glimpse at what might have been if Wayne had pursued a different career path. Number 12. The Wings of Eagles, 1957. John Ford and John Wayne reunited for this heartbreaking biopic that even hardcore Wayne fans often miss. Based on the true story of Commander Frank Spig Wed, Wayne portrays a naval aviation pioneer who gets paralyzed in a freak accident, only to reinvent himself as a successful Hollywood screenwriter. The emotional weight Wayne brings to Wed's journey from cockpit to wheelchair is unlike anything else in his filmography. Ford, who was close friends with the real Wed, made this film as a personal tribute, lending an unusual intimacy to what could have been just another military drama. When Wed learns he'll never walk again, Wayne delivers one of the most gut-wrenching scenes of his career, showing vulnerability rarely associated with his tough guy persona. The film doesn't shy away from Wed's struggles with alcoholism and his failed marriage, giving Wayne dramatic territory he seldom explored elsewhere. Critics were divided on whether Wayne could handle such emotional complexity. The Hollywood Reporter praised his restrained but powerful performance, while others felt he was miscast in a role requiring more nuance than swagger. Commercially, the film underperformed compared to other Ford-Wayne collaborations. What makes The Wings of Eagles special is Ford's personal connection to the material. The director even appears as a character named John Dodge, played by Ward Bond, thinly disguising himself in Weed's Hollywood adventures. Behind the scenes, Wayne worked closely with military advisors to authentically portray Wed's disability, showing a dedication to realism often lacking in his more action-oriented roles. Number 11. Operation Pacific, 1951. Dive, Dive. Wayne goes underwater in this tense submarine thriller that puts him in the claustrophobic confines of a damaged sub during WWI. As Lieutenant Commander Duke Gifford, Wayne trades open landscapes for cramped quarters, leading his crew through Japanese waters after their torpedo systems mysteriously malfunction. What makes this different from other Wayne war movies? He's not just fighting the enemy, he's fighting faulty equipment that's getting Americans killed. The film was inspired by the real experiences of Admiral Charles Lockwood, who served as technical advisor during production. Wayne took his role seriously, spending weeks with actual submariners to understand the pressure and precision required beneath the waves. The result is one of his most technically authentic performances, with Wayne operating periscopes and torpedo systems with convincing expertise. Patricia Neal co-stars as Wayne's love interest, and their chemistry adds depth to what could have been just another war picture. Ward Bond, who appeared in 23 films with Wayne, plays the submarine captain with a gruff authenticity that balances Wayne's more heroic presence. Critics weren't kind, calling the film formulaic and propaganda, but audiences loved it. The underwater battle scenes, while obviously using models, were considered groundbreaking for 1951. Film historian Leonard Maltin noted that Operation Pacific showed Wayne's willingness to share the spotlight with ensemble casts years before it became fashionable in Hollywood. The film's most controversial aspect was its glorification of submarine warfare just 6 years after Lobitoet ended. Japanese audiences were particularly offended by scenes showing Wayne's submarine crew celebrating after sinking enemy ships. Number 10. Allegheny Uprising, 1939. Released just 1 week after his star-making turn in Stagecoach, this revolutionary war drama nearly derailed Wayne's career before it truly began. Playing Jim Smith, a colonial militia leader fighting corrupt British traders selling weapons to hostile tribes, Wayne delivers a performance so uncharacteristically cautious that he later called it, "The only time I played a character who thought before he acted." The film's terrible timing couldn't have been worse. Premiering just as Britain entered World War II against Nazi Germany, it was promptly banned in the United Kingdom for being anti-British and potentially damaging to wartime morale. Even Wayne himself wasn't a fan, admitting years later that Jim Smith was dull compared to the Ringo Kid and lacking the boldness that would become his trademark. Critics were equally unimpressed. The New York Times called it a sluggish historical drama that fails to capitalize on Wayne's natural charisma, while Variety dismissed it as a footnote to American history that should have remained in textbooks. The film barely recouped its budget at the box office, and RKO quickly shelved it. What makes Allegheny Uprising worth revisiting is its strange place in Wayne's evolution. Shot between his breakthrough in Stagecoach and his ascension to full stardom, it shows a Wayne still uncomfortable with leading roles, experimenting with a more thoughtful, less physical performance. Director William A. Sider clearly didn't know how to use Wayne's strengths, resulting in a performance that feels restrained to the point of blandness, something that would never happen again once John Ford took Wayne under his wing. Number 9. Dark Command, 1940. In the shadow of Stagecoach, Wayne quietly made this Civil War thriller that pitted him against future Casablanca star Walter Pidgeon in a volatile battle for power and love. As Bob Seaton, a Texas cowboy who becomes Marshal of Lawrence, Kansas, Wayne finds himself locked in deadly rivalry with local schoolteacher Will Cantrell, who transforms into a bloodthirsty Confederate guerrilla leader after losing both an election and a woman to Wayne. Based loosely on the life of infamous Confederate raider William Quantrill, Dark Command gave Wayne his first chance to show romantic chemistry with Claire Trevor after their successful pairing in Stagecoach. Their scenes together crackle with an energy that Wayne rarely captured with other leading ladies. The film also features a young Roy Rogers in a rare serious role, playing Trevor's brother. Director Raoul Walsh, who later made High Sierra with Humphrey Bogart, crafted several spectacular action sequences, including a town burning that utilized real fire effects rather than the miniatures common in that era. The climactic fight between Wayne and Pidgeon amid a massive cavalry charge remains one of the most ambitious stunts in early Wayne films. Critics praised Wayne's growth as an actor, with Film Daily noting, Wayne shows surprising range, suggesting he might have more to offer than just cowboy roles. The film's balance of romance, history, and action helped establish the template for many of Wayne's later successes. While overshadowed by his more famous westerns, Dark Command represents a crucial stepping stone in Wayne's transformation from B-movie cowboy to legitimate Hollywood star. Number 8. The Three Musketeers, 1933. Before he was the Duke, John Wayne was struggling actor Marion Morrison cranking out cheap serials just to pay the bills. This bizarre 12-chapter adventure series, not to be confused with the classic Dumas tale, casts Wayne as Lieutenant Tom Wayne, an American pilot in the French Foreign Legion who teams up with 3 legionnaires to battle a mysterious desert villain called El Shaitan. Shot in just 3 weeks on a shoestring budget, this serial shows Wayne before he developed his famous persona. He's noticeably younger, leaner, and lacks the distinctive swagger and drawl that would later define him. Still credited as Duke Morrison, Wayne looks almost unrecognizable to fans of his later work. The production values are laughably cheap. The North African desert is clearly just Southern California, and Wayne's airplane stunts are obviously miniatures filmed with primitive effects. Each chapter ended with a cliffhanger. Wayne trapped in burning buildings, facing firing squads, or plummeting from great heights, only to be improbably rescued in the next installment. These serialized adventures were Saturday matinee fare for children, shown before the main feature in theaters across America. The serial was so forgettable that it virtually disappeared until 1946, when editors chopped it down into a 60-minute feature called Desert Command to capitalize on Wayne's growing fame. Critics were merciless when this edited version resurfaced, with Variety calling it a relic best left buried in the film vaults. For Wayne scholars, the Three Musketeers represents his wilderness years, the nearly 80 low-budget films he made during the 1930s before John Ford rescued him from obscurity with Stagecoach. Number 7. Flying Leathernecks, 1951. Howard Hughes personally pushed to cast John Wayne in this explosive aerial war drama, even when studio executives doubted he was right for the part. As Major Dan Kirby, Wayne commands a squadron of Marine fighter pilots in the Pacific, clashing with his more compassionate executive officer, Captain Carl Griffin, over how to prepare inexperienced pilots for the brutality of combat. The tension between Wayne and Ryan drives the film, creating a moral debate about military leadership. Is it better to be tough and save lives in battle, or compassionate and risk higher casualties? Their ideological battle explodes during the Guadalcanal campaign, where unprepared pilots pay the ultimate price. Their conflict wasn't just on screen either. Behind the scenes, Wayne clashed repeatedly with the film's technical advisor, Marine Ace Major John Smith, who openly mocked Wayne for never having served in the military despite playing so many soldiers on screen. Director Nicholas Ray blended staged cockpit scenes with actual combat footage, creating aviation, sequences that were groundbreaking for 1951. Hughes, himself an aviation enthusiast, insisted on technical accuracy in every detail, from radio procedures to aircraft maintenance scenes. Critics were divided. The Hollywood Reporter praised the realistic portrayal of aerial warfare, while others called it shameless propaganda for the Marine Corps. The film performed moderately well at the box office, but was overshadowed by The Flying Missile, released the same year. What makes Flying Leathernecks fascinating today is its unflinching look at command decisions. Wayne's character must literally decide who lives and who dies, giving the film a moral complexity absent from many war pictures of the era. Number 6. Back to Bataan, 1945. Released just as World War II was ending, this guerrilla warfare drama shows Wayne leading Filipino resistance fighters against Japanese occupation in a race against time to support MacArthur's promised return. As Colonel Joseph Madden, Wayne displays a rare cultural sensitivity, working alongside Anthony Quinn's Filipino captain in what was, for 1945, an unusually respectful portrayal of military partnership between Americans and Filipinos. The production faced an extraordinary challenge when reality overtook fiction. General MacArthur actually retook the Philippines while the movie was still filming, forcing screenwriters to hastily rewrite the ending. This strange timing meant the film was released in May 1945, just as the war in the Pacific was reaching its climax, making it both a movie and unintentional documentary. Quinn later expressed discomfort with the film, calling it a patriotic rush job that glossed over the true brutality of the Japanese occupation. Modern critics have pointed to the film's problematic portrayal of both Japanese soldiers and Filipinos as a product of wartime propaganda rather than cultural understanding. Director Edward Dmytryk, who would later be blacklisted during the McCarthy era, pushed the boundaries of what censors would allow in depicting war atrocities. One scene showing Filipino teachers being hanged for refusing to remove the American flag from their school was based on actual events and was considered shocking for audiences at the time. Despite its propagandistic elements, Back to Bataan contains moments of surprising nuance. Wayne's character struggles with his white savior role, eventually recognizing that the Filipino fighters are truly the heroes of their own liberation, a progressive stance for 1940s Hollywood. Number 5. Flying Tigers, 1942. John Wayne's transformation into America's wartime hero began with this white-knuckle action film, released just months after Pearl Harbor. As Jim Gordon, leader of the volunteer Flying Tigers fighting the Japanese in China, Wayne established the tough but fair military commander persona he would perfect throughout World War II. What's shocking? This propaganda masterpiece was rushed into production so quickly after all America entered the war that it hit theaters while the real Flying Tigers were still fighting in Asia. The dogfight sequences were revolutionary for 1942, combining miniature planes on wires with rapid-fire editing to create air battles that had audiences gripping their seats. The special effects team pulled off visual magic on a shoestring budget, famously reusing the same footage of planes exploding multiple times throughout the film. Their ingenuity earned 3 Oscar nominations for visual effects, sound recording, and musical score. The film's timing and patriotic message made it Republic Pictures' first million-dollar box office hit, but not everyone was impressed. The actual commander of the Flying Tigers was furious about the film's inaccuracies, calling it Hollywood nonsense that bore little resemblance to their actual operations in China. Wayne, who had never served in the military, began facing criticism that would follow him throughout his career about portraying war heroes while never experiencing combat firsthand. Despite these controversies, Flying Tigers cemented Wayne's status as Hollywood's go-to military man. Director David Miller created memorable characters beyond Wayne, including Paul Kelly as a doctor and John Carroll as a reckless pilot whose redemption arc gives the film unexpected emotional depth. The film's success established the template for dozens of wartime action films that followed. Number 4. The Fighting Seabees, 1944. Wayne bulldozes Japanese soldiers to death in this shockingly brutal propaganda film that the Navy actually used for recruitment. As Wedge Donovan, a civilian contractor frustrated that his unarmed construction workers keep getting killed by enemy forces, Wayne lobbies for the creation of the construction battalions, militarized builders who could construct airfields and defend them simultaneously. The film walks a fine line between historical dramatization and outright military advertising. Working directly with the U.S. Navy, director Edward Ludwig had access to actual Seabee training facilities and equipment, lending authenticity to the construction sequences. However, the combat scenes cross into uncomfortable territory by today's standards, particularly when Wayne's character deliberately runs down Japanese soldiers with a bulldozer while grinning, a scene that drew cheers from 1944 audiences but raises ethical questions now. Susan Hayward provides the love interest as a war correspondent caught between Wayne and his naval officer rival Dennis O'Keefe. Their triangle adds unexpected complexity to what could have been a straightforward action film. The final battle sequence, where the Seabees defend an airfield using construction equipment as weapons, remains one of the most creative combat scenes in any Wayne war film. Critics recognized the propagandistic nature of the film, but praised its entertainment value. The New York Times called it unabashed flag-waving that nonetheless delivers genuine thrills, while Variety noted that Wayne has never been more convincing as a reluctant warrior forced into combat. The real Seabees embraced the film so thoroughly that their official motto, "We build, we fight," comes directly from Wayne's dialogue, showing how thoroughly the line between Hollywood and military recruitment had blurred during wartime. Number 3. Reunion in France, 1942. John Wayne playing second fiddle to Joan Crawford, this forgotten wartime thriller casts the Duke in a rare supporting role as Pat Talbot, an American fighter pilot shot down over Nazi-occupied Paris who depends on a fashionable French socialite for survival. Crawford takes center stage as Michelle de Lebec, a woman who initially denies the reality of German occupation until she loses everything and finds purpose helping Allied soldiers escape. Director Jules Dassin, who would later be blacklisted during the McCarthy era, crafts a surprisingly tense cat-and-mouse thriller as Crawford and Wayne dodge Gestapo agents throughout Paris. Their unlikely romance develops amid constant danger, giving Wayne a chance to show vulnerability rather than his usual heroics. Philip Dorn delivers a chilling performance as Crawford's collaborator fiancé, creating a love triangle with genuine stakes. MGM rushed the film into production to capitalize on America's entry into World War II, resulting in numerous historical inaccuracies that critics were quick to point out. The New York Times dismissed it as a preposterous melodrama, while Variety complained that Wayne seems uncomfortable in a role that requires more romance than action. The film's box office performance was mediocre, quickly overshadowed by more authentic war dramas. What makes it fascinating today is seeing Wayne completely outside his comfort zone, playing a character who spends most of the film hiding rather than fighting. His chemistry with Crawford has an unexpected spark, particularly in scenes where she disguises him as a Parisian worker. Crawford later claimed Wayne was terrified of working with her, knowing she was the bigger star at the time. Number 2. Rio Lobo, 1970. Howard Hawks and John Wayne's final collaboration became the film that convinced Quentin Tarantino to quit directing after his 10th movie. As Colonel Cord McNally, an aging Civil War veteran hunting down traitors in post-war Texas, Wayne seems visibly exhausted, not just his character, but the actor himself, creating an unintentional meta-commentary on a Hollywood legend approaching the end of his career. After working magic twice with essentially the same formula in Rio Bravo and El Dorado, Hawks and Wayne's third attempt at the story feels like watching a beloved record play with a scratch in it. The basic elements remain: a jailhouse standoff, a mix of quirky sidekicks, and Wayne as the moral center, but the energy is notably diminished. Jack Elam provides comic relief as an elderly sheriff, while Jennifer O'Neill takes the female lead, but neither can elevate material that feels recycled. The film flopped financially, earning about $4 million against a $6 million budget, a significant disappointment for a John Wayne Western in 1970. Critics were merciless, with Variety describing the direction as listless, and Roger Ebert writing that Wayne and Hawks are just going through the motions. It marked the end of Hawks's directing career, a disappointing finale for one of Hollywood's greatest filmmakers. What makes Rio Lobo fascinating today is watching Wayne grapple with his aging screen persona. At 63, he was visibly struggling with physical scenes that once came effortlessly. Yet, instead of acknowledging this limitation, the film pretends he's still the same action hero, creating an awkward disconnect between the script and reality. When Tarantino cites this film as the reason he plans to retire after 10 movies, he specifically references how sad it is to watch heroes stay too long at the fair. Number 1. Jet Pilot, 1957. Howard Hughes spent an insane 7 years and $4 million making this Cold War romantic thriller that might be the strangest entry in Wayne's entire filmography. As Air Force Colonel Jim Shannon, Wayne falls for a beautiful Soviet defector pilot played by Janet Leigh, only to discover she might be a spy, leading to a bizarre mixture of aerial stunts, espionage, and steamy romance that baffled audiences when it finally reached theaters. Production started in 1949, but Hughes, a notorious perfectionist obsessed with aviation, kept reshooting and re-editing until RKO finally wrestled it from his control and released it in 1957. By then, the film's politics were already outdated, its aircraft models obsolete, and Wayne himself had visibly aged between scenes shot years apart. The result is a fascinating mess. Scenes of cutting-edge aerial photography, Hughes hired test pilots to perform dangerous stunts, intercut with obvious studio shots and romantic scenes that range from suggestive to unintentionally hilarious. Critics eviscerated the film upon release. Time magazine called it a monument to Hughes's obsession and waste, while Variety described it as technically impressive, but dramatically inert. The film lost nearly its entire budget at the box office, becoming one of the most expensive flops of the 1950s. What makes Jet Pilot worth watching today is its bizarre hybrid nature, part military recruitment film, part sexy spy thriller, part aviation showcase. Wayne seems utterly bewildered by the material, especially in scenes where he's required to be romantic or comedic with Leigh. Director Josef von Sternberg, who directed Marlene Dietrich's most famous films, was fired halfway through production, leaving the project with a schizophrenic visual style that veers between artistic and propagandistic. It's a fascinating disaster that shows what happens when eccentric billionaires meddle in filmmaking. So there you have it, 15 John Wayne films that deserve more attention than they've gotten over the decades. From war propaganda to romantic thrillers to aviation adventures, the Duke's career contained far more variety than his cowboy image suggests. But what do you think? Have you seen any of these forgotten classics? Was Wayne actually a more versatile actor than he gets credit for, or was he right to stick primarily to westerns? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into Hollywood's Golden Age legends. Is it possible John Wayne's forgotten films are actually better than his classics?